Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today I have this amazing guest, which is a cybersecurity leader in New Zealand, but also in the industry. Amazing Hilary Walton. Hey Hilary.
Hi, Andre. Hi, everyone.
Hilary, thanks so much for accepting the invite to join me in these conversations. I really thought about bringing in someone with your caliber. You've been a CISO, you've been in the industry for well over a decade, and of course today you're at Microsoft. How was your experience going through your career, and what was it like for you?
Thanks heaps, Andre. And I just want to thank you so much for having me on today. My career probably hasn't been a traditional career trajectory. I actually started my career as a psychologist. That's what I studied at university, and I went into the Royal New Zealand Air Force being a psychologist. So very much looking at the world of work and leadership and culture, decision making and performance and things like that within the Defence Force. And then I did a bit of travelling, worked for a bit in Australia, did some psychology consulting over there and then over in London. And then that's when I actually made my transition into security. So it's one of those stories where I was just in the right time, right place and put my hand up and said yes. But I managed to get a role with MI5 in their behavioural science unit, working on what they called a security culture project. So this is my first introduction to security, and I have to say it really fascinated me. The area I was looking at was very much around behaviour, so that's why they wanted the psychologist in the role, and it was about, how do we get people to follow security instructions and policies? We tell them over and over again. It seems like the messages don't stick, so what kind of levers do organisations have to really influence security culture? And then I got to, spend time with lots of different types of security people. So physical security, cyber security, or information security is sort of called back then before cyber became the word, and personnel security as well. So that kind of HR vetting type of security. And so based on that experience, I then was able to work in the Olympic Games, and they sort of offered me a role leading information security for the Olympic Games, which was pretty terrifying, but again, it was kind of right time, right place. I had the kind of right connections who had experienced me, who just went, you should apply for this role. So I did, and I got it, and I led quite a small team. There was 3 people that we had in that kind of team, but then we had a lot of contractors and vendors and things like that we're managing. And so managing the cybersecurity up into the games, implementing all the security policies and making it hard for people to do their job, actually, to be honest. Doing lots of audits and checking that we had all the things we needed in place. And then on games time, it was an operational role. So literally sitting in the operations centre with a phone on the desk, and if it rang, you were having a cyber attack. So you didn't want the phone to ring. And it actually rang surprisingly not as frequent as you would think, which was great. But when it did, you kind of went, oh dear, and then you were coordinating the whole kind of thing.
Sorry, just a comment there, because you're talking about early days, or very 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Oh my god.
2012 was the games
2012
that I worked in, so
more than 10 years ago, way before multiple frameworks that we use currently in SOCs were even created. I wonder what would be the process like, right? And in terms of, there's an attack. How do you detect? How do you respond to an attack? And what kind of frameworks and stuff like that you used back in the days? Ever since then, all processes have evolved a lot more. And what's your take from all you've learned then?
It really felt like we were building that whole SOC from scratch, basically, that SOC experience. And interestingly, we didn't call it a SOC. It wasn't a security operations center. We called the whole thing protective monitoring. That was just the term of that we used for the system that we built in, and then all the people and process around it. And one of the people I worked with was a consultant, and they basically wrote a Bible for us on if this happens, do this, if it happens, do that. So you can imagine it was really, really thick. And then in the lead up to the games, it was just rehearsing, and then kind of updating this Bible every time we learned something different about what the thing is that we would do next. So yeah, in terms of actually practicing that, it really felt like we're building it from scratch. And I know now there's a lot more playbooks, as we call it, and standard procedures and things like that. But yeah, it was kind of just a really interesting experience. It was like, let's give it a go. What would you do next? And let's say this happened. Okay, now what? And then, okay, write that down on the notes for next time.
Okay, so Hills, you're talking about the Olympics experience. So tell me what happened after then, and how did you get to be a CISO in the industry? Yeah.
So after working in London for the Olympics, we came back to New Zealand. That's my husband and I. I was very heavily pregnant at the time, so I was actually waddling around the Olympic Park with a massive belly. And then after some time off with baby, I was very keen to get back into the world of work. And there was no cybersecurity roles. There wasn't chief information security officer roles in New Zealand at the time. It was another hat that people had, like the IT manager would do that and they'd do security. So that sort of role wasn't available to me at that time. So I went into risk management and I worked for Airways, which is New Zealand's navigation services provider. And so, because cybersecurity is all about risk. So I did the risk role, and then I went into a different role at Airways, which was looking at security. And it was about drawing together the different strands of security from IT, personnel security, and physical security, and turning that into something for that organisation that made sense. And I was sort of overseeing and governing security there. And then after that, I did the CIO role, which I talked about, rolling out Office 365. And I was very, happily working away there. But then I got asked to do a Chief Information Security Officer role for Cordia, which is a business-to-business telco in New Zealand. And it came about in a funny way, and it kind of comes back to this career capital thing you're talking about. So the reason they spotted me was because the marketing team had seen me on LinkedIn and online and doing all my things. And they were like, have you thought about her? It would be great to actually have a Chief Information Security Officer who can do some public speaking stuff as well. She's done the security thing before. She's obviously fairly confident in terms of public speaking. Why don't you have a look at her? So they did. And first of all, they didn't want to progress me actually because I was based out of Christchurch and they were mainly in Auckland, so there was a bit of a thing there initially. And then a couple of weeks later they came back and said, oh, you know what, Christchurch is not that big a deal, I think we can make this work. And so I took the role with Cordia doing the Chief Information Security Officer role, and it was really awesome. It felt like a really, really big role, and it felt like in saying that, a lot of my roles have been kind of enterprise level. So you're doing something, but you're leading it on behalf of the company. So if you're thinking about getting into like a CISO career, think about what programs you can kind of lead and run on behalf of your organization that get you in that position where you've run a program of something. And that could even be something as simple as a security awareness campaign, or for me, it was sort of running risk programs and then kind of an IT program. But the more of that program work you can do, I think it really helps you in your CISO role. So that's a bit of a tip. The other tip would be just think about, in terms of career capital, what kind of things would be really useful for a CISO to have. And you have to think about the level of that role, because it's about leadership, it's about influence and speaking with people across the business. It is all about the security things as well, but often you're going to have a very technical team who are doing a lot of that with you, and you don't have to do it all. Like, leadership is just a different position in the team. It just happens to be the one that's leading the group, if that makes sense. So any of those leadership roles that you might aspire to, be they CISOs, CTOs, CIOs, whatever it might be, maybe keep that in mind. Yes, you need a certain amount of skill to do those roles, but it's only one role in a team of people who are doing all the things, and you're doing it together with others. So
amazing tip. Amazing tip, because as a CISO, I often go through certification content that states that CISOs have to be very technical. Some of them have very specific hands-on kind of requirements, and I would imagine that I wouldn't imagine a CISO would be doing that. And it's amazing to kind of hear that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you stayed at Korea for a couple of years at least, right?
Yeah, I did 3 years at Cordia, and then made the move to Microsoft. And again, career capital. So I had interviewed Vanessa Sorensen on my podcast and Sarah Bowden as well, which are two obviously big Microsoft people. And so, I was on the radar already, I guess, from the start from doing that. So you shouldn't underestimate the impact or benefits of this whole working out loud and being fairly present online and through LinkedIn, because it certainly does build your visibility in the marketplace. And you make relationships a lot, even though that you might think they're online ones and they don't matter. They kind of do. And even more and more, my kids are sitting in the next room having online relationships with the people that they are gaming with. So the distinction between in-person and online is definitely blurring. Both are important, don't get me wrong, you need both. But yeah, I think certainly a lot of people just don't consider, they're just like, I'm not a social media person, or I don't want to put myself out there, but you're kind of leaving a lot on the table if you don't do it. So yeah, it's totally fine if you don't, but I just think you're leaving opportunities on the table.
Yeah, opened up a lot of doors for you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, great to see. Yeah, to me, I've had similar experiences as well. Good to hear. Yeah, it goes all the way to C-level conversations and levels. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, definitely love the work that you're doing, Andre, with your channel and all this awesome security updates, and what you're building is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. I take a lot from you and from others in the industry. So yeah, great to be part of the community that's so engaged as well, right? So
the cyber community is pretty special, I have to admit.
Yeah, it is, especially in New Zealand. Yeah, I've been lucky to be part of the Women in Cyber Awards as well, yes. which you won. Mentor of the Year, was it?
Yes, yeah, highly commended. I didn't quite win, but yes. I felt like I won on the night.
Yeah, well, that's a win. And so yeah, it's great to see the community act up like that as well, and have this sort of events that promote diversity. So that's amazing. And then at Microsoft, you are a virtual CTO.
Yeah. So they call on the can, it's called Account Technology Strategist. But that's the idea that I am a CTO on behalf of my customers. So that means I meet with people across my customers. So which is great, because as a psychologist, I'm intimately curious in what everyone else is up to and what their jobs are about. So that kind of appeases that for me. I get to have lots of different meetings with lots of different people, find out what all these fantastic things that are going on, and then try and work out how we can do more. Whether that's dealing with a pain point that an organization might have, or an opportunity that they see that they're trying to work out how to get there through Microsoft technology, or they've got a kind of a business outcome that they're trying to reach, and then we kind of work as a team with my customers, which I really love, because it's like mentoring, I guess, in terms of when you've done mentoring, it's a very rewarding relationship both ways, like being a mentor and as a mentee. And I see that with my customers, like I'm so inspired by them and what they're trying to do, and then really want to help them achieve what they're trying to do.
And and with all the advancements in the last year and so, I imagine you're talking a lot about things that are to come.
AI right? is the thing, for sure. And that's conversations which are really exciting in terms of what can we do with AI, or they're conversations where they're like, oh my gosh, AI is really scary as well. How can we make sure that we're managing it and controlling it? And I feel very lucky that Microsoft has a really good story around that. So it is easy to talk about AI coming from the Microsoft perspective, because of how they're building it, which I really love.
I'll leave that for another day. Perhaps should talk about AI security and your thoughts about AI. All right. So I had to put a pause to the conversation with Hilary, because we got really excited about her career, her mindset, and the conversation went on a little longer. And I'm going to have that in a follow-up video. Now, I hope you're enjoying your weekend just as much as I am editing this and doing this for you. And that's why, if you like this kind of videos, make sure you like and you subscribe to keep seeing more interesting conversations with people from cybersecurity, people from the industry that are doing exciting stuff that is available sometimes to you, and that they're trying to help the community as well. All right. With that said, hope you have a good one.